Your name's not Thomas. What's your name?
James.
James, how old are you?
3.
Are you all sweaty already? You've been running and playing already this morning? Are you having a great day?
Yeah.
Do you know how you crush at poker?
Mm-hmm.
You have to find soft games. You have to find people to play with you who are worse than you. So today we're going to be discussing how to find a soft game. I know some of you may already know this, but I get asked this question a decent amount, and I want to make sure that all of you are very aware of how you win at poker, and also how to find games where you win at poker. Oh, you're done?
Yeah.
All right, love you. See you later. Have a good day.
That was 1 minute.
That was 1 minute?
Yeah.
Yep, all right, that was all you need. Got your fix in. He got his fix of fame, now he's out of here. All right, today we're going to be discussing how to find soft games. What does that even mean? Why do you even want a soft game? Etc., etc. So, first things first, why do you want to be in a soft game? Well, if you find games that are presumably soft, that means that you are going to be playing in games where people make mistakes. And it turns out, you make money when people make mistakes. When they play well, you do not make money. I know a lot of people out there want to think, oh, if I just could play in higher stakes where people would respect my raises and fold to my bluffs, I would do better. You have to understand that as you play in higher stakes games or against tougher opponents, they're not going to be making the boneheaded mistakes that the recreational players make in the small stakes games. You definitively make money when your opponents make mistakes, and, you definitively don't make money when your opponents do not make mistakes. The neat thing that a lot of people don't quite understand is that imagine your opponent told you exactly what they're going to do. You would think you'd be able to win every time, but that's not true. If your opponents tell you, I'm going to definitively play the game theory optimal strategy, then you can't beat them. And you will know exactly what they do in every single spot, right? So understand that just because you know what your opponent does, just because you have a better idea of what their ranges are, just because perhaps you know they'll call you appropriately, that does not mean you're going to make money from them. You make money when your opponents do dumb things. For example, you make money when your opponent call you on the river every single time. If you know they're going to call you on the river every time, your strategy is easy. Just value bet them a lot. Are we talking about tournaments or cash games? Both, because that's how you win money at poker. You make money when your opponents make mistakes. Turns out finding soft poker games is very applicable to both cash games and tournaments, and we're going to be discussing that throughout this webinar today. Also, yesterday, we announced a new 14-day cash game challenge. So we're going to discuss cash games first. That's also where you usually have a little bit more control over if you are in a soft game or not. But you can check that out at pokercoaching.com/cash challenge. The challenge will be starting in just a few days. Make sure you get in on it. I know a lot of you are currently stuck at home without a ton to do, so make sure you make good use of your time. Also, if you're watching here on Instagram, we do a little coffee Monday, Wednesday, Friday on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Periscope. Not always on Instagram, though, because Instagram does not show my screen very well, but we don't really need to show my screen today, so we're doing it on Instagram. But again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, bright and early, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. All right, so you know you make money when your opponents make mistakes. Fine. How do you find games where your opponents make mistakes? Well, let's discuss cash games first, because you actually get to pick the table that you play at. Okay? So in cash games, you want to be looking, ideally, for a party. You want to find people who are going nuts, having some drinks, maybe having some drugs, really just losing their minds and going nuts. You want there to be big pots. You want there to be re-raises. You want there to be multi-way pots. These are all indicators of people typically making mistakes. And the reason for that is because from a game theory optimal point of view, if your opponents play well, there should not actually be a ton of very multi-way pots. There should not be a ton of big pots. They should actually mostly be pretty small. So if most of the pots should be pretty small, yet for some reason they're all very big, that is a very strong indicator of a soft game. It's not a weak game because everyone's in there battling. So if you know everyone's going to be in there blasting, they're raising, re-raising, putting their money in the pot every single time, what do? Well, you sit there, and you play good, fundamentally sound poker, right? You don't need to be gambling incredibly hard with them as well. You want to make sure that you are finding games that are generally loose, splashy, and aggressive. Okay? Now, if you're playing in a private game, which I suppose we should mention, or a home game, sometimes you're going to find that you do have to partake in the party to be invited back to the party. Now, that's fine. You should just partake a little bit less than everybody else. For example, if you are playing a private home game and you realize everyone in there is gambling hard and you really want to get invited back, you better get in there and give some action. You have to give action to get action to some extent, assuming your opponents are competent. And you're going to find that the owner, the operator of most private home games, are actually very, very competent. They realize that someone sitting there not playing any pots is bad for the game and you're not going to get invited back. In a casino, it's a little bit different. That said, if everyone's gambling and they are, competent, they're going to be aware that you are not gambling with them. Okay? So if you're not gambling with them, they're not going to give you action when they finally do decide to play a pot. You put lines on the poker table. Yeah, that's smart. You want to make sure that you get your opponents revved up. But yeah, find drunk high people, fighting to stay awake, nurse a beer for a couple hours, and join the party. I mean, sounds a little bit predatory, but it's actually just true. That is a very, very good way to cultivate good games, find good games, and make sure that you are always playing in profitable scenarios. That said, I don't think it's actually mandatory for you to be playing in insane games. I made a lot of money back in the day sitting at Bellagio 1020. I would show up at noon when the game started. It was me and a bunch of 70 and 80-year-old guys, and they were all very, very tight poker players. They were not even all that bad. They were actually pretty good, but they were a little too tight calling bets on all betting rounds. So we just printed money by betting flop, betting turn, betting river until they raised me. And that's not going to give you a giant win rate, but it will give you a solid win rate. All you really need to know to win at poker is, what do my opponents do wrong? And if you know that they are all way too tight, a little bit too cautious on all betting rounds, that's going to allow you to just adjust appropriately and print money in that game. That game was not a party. That game was a snooze fest. But we still printed money. I think we had something like $160 an hour win rate at 1020, just playing good, solid, low variance poker. We ever played in home games with celebrities and high-profile recreational players? Yes. Those are good games. How do you get invited to those games? Get on those people's radar, provide value to them, and always be part of the party. What about online poker? In online poker, very often a lot of the sites for cash games, they will display things like VPIP for the whole table, or they'll display things like pot size on average for the last hour or 20 minutes or something. Those are usually good indicators. Also online, you can keep good notes on people. You should definitely find the people who are bad and try to play with them. Back in the day, they had a friend list on Party Poker. It turns out your friend list was just all the really bad players. So you would search all the really bad players, find their tables, and then go there. All right. You try to look online for optimal stats. You have to understand optimal stats are not very clearly defined. I would tell you to talk to Alex Fitzgerald or James Romero. They are both very, very good at stats. Those are poker coaching coaches. That they will be very helpful for giving you specific information for your specific situation. What's the longest poker session I've had? I don't know. I don't play long poker sessions. I think long poker sessions are for fish. Because why would you want to play in a long session when you could take a nap and be fully rested? That said, sometimes the game's amazing and it's going to end at some point soon. In that case, you probably do want to go a little bit longer. I mean, like in reality, I'm sure I've had some like 50-hour session, but that was when I was young and dumb. In reality, I keep sessions now to like 16 hours max. I mean, you see me streaming, right? Whenever I'm sitting here streaming on Sundays, it's basically... Those are basically the longest sessions that we do, right? 16 hours, solid day, feel fine afterwards. Nothing insane. And I think that's pretty good. And probably about as long as any regular human should be going. Now, I'm sure there are some people who are savants and they can just sit there and play all day, every day. But... I'm really not putting in long sessions because it just doesn't make sense. As long as the game's going to continuously run, you just don't need to do that. Unfortunately for tournaments, they do not demand long sessions. Okay, so cash games. You want to be looking for spots where people make mistakes, right? You want to find a game where people make mistakes. And then you want to adjust appropriately. You just want to know what they're doing so that you can adjust appropriately. You don't want to sit at a table where it seems like everyone's playing well and you don't really know what to take advantage of. And to be fair, it's fine to also be at a table where there's 3 maniacs and 3 really tight players and you. That's okay too, because you just want to make sure you're not paying off the tight players and you are calling down very wide against the lunatics, right? So you need to know how to adjust your particular opponents. Whatever they're doing wrong, adjust, and that money that they are spewing is going to flow right into your chip stack. How do you handle stress at the poker table? I don't get stressed at the poker table. You ever watch me stream? Go watch the streams. You can find them, a few of the replays on YouTube. If you're a poker coaching member, we'll be streaming privately for you this Sunday. We'll do an hour or so for free for everyone, but then we will stream the rest of it for you. An hour for the public, 16 hours for the members. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, you can get in poker coaching right now and be signed up for the 14-day cash game challenge that's starting soon at pokercoaching.com/cash challenge. Can I see your comment? Of course I can. If it's on the screen, I can see your comment. You discovered you were sabotaging your win rate by playing Zoom tables. Yes, don't play Zoom tables. We've already discussed this over and over and over again. Don't play games where there is no potential edge. There's little to no potential edge in Zoom cash games. It's a good way to get experience, not a good way to win money. I tell you this every single time people ask. People keep saying, oh, why am I losing? Turns out everybody's good. If everybody's good, you don't win money. Can I point you to a video on marginal draws? If you want to be pointed to a video on any specific topic, send me an email, support@pokercoaching.com, because we have videos on basically everything. However, I don't know the URL for every video I've ever made in my head. Sorry, I know some of them, but not all of them. All right, what about for tournaments? How do you pick good tournaments? How do you find good tournaments to play in? How can you predict when they're going to be soft? Well, take a second, think about it. Well, first things first, you want to find games that have a lot of satellite qualifiers. You want to find games that people are playing way above their means, which is what satellite qualifiers do. If you normally play $100 tournaments, you play $100 satellite, you win your way into a $1,000 tournament, then you're playing 10 times your average stake, which is a disaster, right? It's an absolute disaster to play a game 10 times your average stake for no reason. You'd much rather just have that money, put it into your bankroll, and go from there. So you want to play satellite qualifiers. You also want to play in tournaments with big guarantees. These are going to be things like the weekend $500 buy-in tournament at your local casino. Usually they have a big guarantee on that compared to every other tournament. As Jeremy says here, day of the week is sometimes relevant, right? You're going to find softer games nights and weekends. That's just how it goes. The noon Tuesday game at Bellagio probably isn't going to be all that soft, unless you know how to exploit it, like we discussed, right? Okay, so you want to find big guarantees in relation to the buy-in. Obviously, if it's like a 100,000 guarantee, but the buy-in's $5,000, that's 20 people. But if it's a 100,000 guarantee on a $300 tournament, that's actually a substantial guarantee. And you'll find that generally the large guarantees in relation to the buy-in attract large fields. And in any individual locality, there really aren't all that many good poker players. So let's say there are 50 good poker players in your town, let's just pretend. And you know this tournament is going to attract 500 people. Well, that means roughly 450 of those people are not going to be especially good, right? That's way softer than a tournament that's going to attract 100 people. Because then if 50 of them are good and 50 of them are bad, the win rate is going to be way lower than if 50 of them are good and 450 of them are bad. This is why I make a point to get up and go to series put on by poker sites like Party Poker, right? They do a great job of satelliting in a lot of players. They'll have a 1,000-person tournament with a $10,000 buy-in. In reality, how many actual good, strong top pros are there in the world? I don't know, 300, 400? They're not all going to be there, so maybe 200 of them are there. That means they're going to have 800 more softish players. Now, if you can re-enter one time, all the good players can re-enter sometimes, so now it's more like 300 or 400 good players to 600 bad players. But whatever, that's a good setup. Okay? LOL, there are a lot of good players here in Vegas. So, Zooted, this is where it's very important to realize what is a good player in relation to your games. For example, when I used to live in Vegas, they would have $1,000 buy-in tournaments all the time in various casinos. I would literally never play all of them. Or any of them. I literally never play any of them. Why? Because it wasn't worth my time to get up and go down there and try to win $300 or $400 or $500 on the day. It just wasn't worth it because I could win more money doing other things. So I would be a good player in that town, but the game did not appeal to me whatsoever, right? And you're going to find that if you are playing in a place like Vegas and they have a $300 buy-in poker tournament, and it's going to get, I don't know, 300 people, I would bet that a large chunk of those players are not actually all that good. Also, they have to be good relative to you, right? So how many, I mean, this is why I say like there's 300 good poker players in the world relative to me, right? There's 300 people who I would prefer to not have at my table. If you take a random, well, Las Vegas local who plays $300 buy-in tournaments and slot them into that $10,000 buy-in party poker tournament, sure, I'm happy to play with them all day, every day. So good relative to you is very, very important. And, I mean, to be fair, say you're the literal best person in your town, say you live in, I don't know, Cleveland, and you're the best poker player in Cleveland, you're probably happy to play with basically anyone else from Cleveland. Like whenever I lived in Vegas, I don't know, probably top 10 or 20 or 30 poker players in Vegas. We're not the top 10, 20, or 30 players in the world, but we're top 10 or 20 or 30 players in Vegas, which will result in me being happy playing in basically any random field in Vegas. So you want to make sure that you don't, well, either underestimate or overestimate your opponents. Scan's brain for the worst town, Cleveland. I've actually played poker in Cleveland, and turns out people were okay there. All right, what else? So, yeah, you want to play in large fields. So whenever you do get in a tournament, when should you buy in? Well, you know you want to play with people who are playing 10 times the size of their average buy-in. So you want to be playing in games that have the satellite qualifiers. You want to be at the tables with the satellite qualifiers. How do you pick which tables you get, or roughly which tables you get? Well, it turns out in most casinos, not all, but in most, if you buy in at a specific time, you are going to sit within the vicinity of those people who buy in at roughly that same time. Imagine a line, right? Imagine a line of 1,000 people in a tournament. We're all going to register at exactly the same time. The way it'll usually work is they'll have about 5 tables open at a time. So the first 30 people are all going to be seated within those 5 tables. And then they'll realize, okay, these are getting full. Then they'll open up like 5 more tables. And then number 30 to 80, well, more like 30 to 60, is going to be slotted into the first tables and the next set of 10 tables. At this point, though, those first tables are basically full. So now they have something like 5 tables that are half full and 5 more tables that need to be filled. So essentially what ends up happening is you end up sitting near the people who register at the same time as you, or roughly at the same time as you. Fine. When do the satellite players register? Well, it turns out in most casinos, not all, but most, again, it's not going to apply to every scenario. In most casinos, what happens is the satellite players play their satellite, they win their satellite at some time, let's say 9 p.m., and then they all go to the cage and they all get bought in at exactly the same time. Well, if that's when all the satellite players are getting bought in, and you know that you want to play with people who are playing 10 times their average stake, who also probably are okay at satellites, but perhaps not good at multi-table tournaments, this is going to be a very, very good spot for you if you are good at multi-table tournaments. So every pro who actually cares about maximizing ROI shows up to the tournament the day before the tournament, and they buy in right when the satellite players buy in, either right before or right after. That is very, 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 very important, assuming you care about maximizing win rates. Okay? So that's one live pro trick to get good tournament seats. If you're playing online, it's purely random. Another live pro trick, very often if you buy in late, if the field's not too big, as it won't be in most small stakes local casinos, let's say there's, 10 tables in the field, and let's say you bust and you're going to re-enter. Don't re-enter immediately just blindly. You need to look around the room and see, are the seats available generally good or generally bad? You want to have bad players on your right, you want to have good players on your left. If you have bad players on your right, and there are a bunch of seats available with bad players on the right, it's very good to buy in. I'm sorry, you don't necessarily want good players on your left. You want good players across the table from you. Whenever you do these things live, you randomly misspeak. I apologize. So you want the bad players on your right. That's very, very important. You do not want, especially, like really, really good players on your left. You want them across the table or not at the table. So let's say you are in this scenario, and let's say there's 10 tables. Let's say 3 of them have open seats, and all 3 of the seats look amazing. They're fish on all the sides, and it's just on both sides of you, and it's amazing. In that scenario, go buy in immediately. What if the seats are not good, though? Should you buy in? Well, it turns out the people on your direct left or right are the players you're going to play the most pots with. One direct to left and right, to the left and right. You're going to play the majority of the pots with those players. So if those players are all good, you're not going to have an edge or not going to have much of an edge in that tournament. So don't buy in. Go for a walk. Let the other people bust, re-enter, take those seats, and then you come back whenever there are new seats. You wait for it to get refreshed. This comes up a lot in the very high-stakes tournaments, $25,000 tournaments, $100,000 tournaments that have small fields, because it's usually very clear, all right, there's like 3 empty seats. They're either good or they're not, definitively. And if they're not, turns out no one buys in again. Because why would you want to buy a bad seat? All the good players realize you make money when your opponents make mistakes. If the players on your left or right are all good, there's no money to be made. So nobody buys in. So they figured out a few ways to do to shuffle the tables in the higher stakes tournaments to induce people to buy in. But in a lot of the smaller stakes games, the local casinos, they'll just sit there and people don't even care. And if your opponents don't care, they're happy to take the bad seats. You let them take the bad seats and then go from there. Okay. What else? Say you do get to a table in a tournament and it's not a good table. You bought in, you did everything you possibly could right, and you just don't have a good table, which is going to happen sometimes. What do you do? Well, ask when is this table going to break? If this table's going to break soon, sit there. Be kind of tight. Wait for a redraw. Wait for your table to break. This happened to me a few years ago. It was memorable because I ended up doing quite well in the tournament, and a few of the other good players on my table did not. I was playing in I think it was $3,500 buy-in tournament at Borgata, and we were down to about 100 people. Okay? I think maybe we were already in the money. I don't know. And 9 tables were like the softest tables you've ever seen in your life, and my table had me and literally like the other best 8 or 9 players in the field at that table. Everybody good was at one table. I don't know how it happened. It's just how it happened. So what do? I know the day is going to end in about 3 hours. And everybody's sitting here playing, I don't know, 50, 60, 80 big blinds deep. We're all kind of deep stacked. The play here is to, instead of playing normally or trying to push the opponents around, the play is to just be kind of tight. Don't do anything absurd. I'm not going to say blind out, obviously play somewhat reasonably, but also take all the lower variance lines because you really want to get a redraw. At that individual table, none of us have much of a win rate. So if none of us have much of a win rate, we should be playing the most tight, aggressive, fundamentally sound poker that we possibly can while avoiding high variance spots. So what do? I sat there and we basically broke even for the 3 hours. Fine. Redraw the next game, get to a soft table, move forward with your life. A few of the players there, though, thought that the way you win at poker is to always push your opponents around, which, could be true, but not in scenarios where your opponents are all good who are going to call off appropriately. So a few of these players got in there, they battled, and I think 2 or 3 of the players at that table ended up going broke. And I was sitting there thinking, like going broke in dumb spots, like running big bluffs or making big calls or whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is the most absurd thing I've ever seen because don't they realize where the money comes from? And the answer is, no, they don't. They're not actually good. They play well enough, but they're not actually good. This goes back to defining, like, what is a good player. If your opponents can't realize the scenario of where does the money come from, it comes from everybody else, these other tables I don't have access to now, but I will have access to in 3 hours. I mean, clearly, that's just a blunder on their part. And if they're making blunders, they're not actually all that good. They may be okay, but they're not all that good. And again, it goes back to defining who is actually good. And the definition will change based on your skill relative to theirs. And, I was sitting here with 4, 5, 6, 7 other people at the table who realized what was going on. Normally loose, aggressive players, but they realized, all right, no money here. Sit here and be good. Also, you may find yourself in a scenario where your table's next to break and everybody at your table is bad, right? In that scenario, you want to be playing as many pots as you can. You want to be playing all the pots with the bad players. This may result in you playing slightly looser than normal. Not insanely looser than normal, but slightly looser than normal. Because let's say you're at the one good table in the field and everybody else has a tough table. You're going to have no win rate at the other tables if you get moved there or if your table breaks or whatnot. But at your current table, you have some edge. So you want to play in whatever manner maximizes that edge in this short period of time that you have with them. So anyway, that's that. What else? Understand. Look. We're basically done with this talk. Look at all these notes I had today. We had all these notes and we got through all of them. Don't I have beautiful handwriting? So this is a situation where you have to ask, do my opponents make mistakes? If they make mistakes, good. Go there, print money, move forward, figure out what they do wrong. If they don't make mistakes, it's not a good table. If they don't make mistakes, then you're not going to make any money. A lot of people think, oh, I make money because I'm so much better than my opponents. But you have to be realistic and honest and correctly assess the skill level of you and your opponents. One thing I've learned is that most of the good players are actually somewhat comparably skilled. And again, what is good? If you take the best 300 players in the world, yes, there is one that is definitively the best. You don't know which one it is, but you don't actually know who it is. And to some extent, like none of them are bad, right? None of them are just making horrible bonehead mistakes. If they are making mistakes, you very often won't even know what they are, which is a situation where you should just all play as close to GTO as you can. Someone's going to be closer to GTO than the others, and that's going to be the tiny winner, right? As Louis Philippe says, always better to underestimate your edge in every scenario. My first poker coach, Bill Seymour, taught me a long time ago. Take whatever win rate you're experiencing over a long period, divide it in half. Back in the day, I was winning about $100 an hour playing 5-10. He said, just presume you're winning more like $50 an hour. Because you could just be running hot for an extended period of time. It happens. And then, now let's presume we're making $50 an hour. Take that and divide it in half. That is what you should be living as if you make. So $25 an hour. Live like you make $25 an hour when you're actually making $100 an hour, and you are just always going to have money. And it turns out, I was never anywhere near close to going broke in my whole poker career because we always did exactly that. Hi, James. You want to come in here? Oh, you want to say hello? Watch your fingers, watch your fingers. Be careful, watch your fingers. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Can you close the door?
No, you're going to be here for just 1 minute.
Why? Please, can you close the door?
Yeah, I'll close the door, fine. Were you out there playing with your brother? What are you going to do today? Can you mail me books to get autographed? Unfortunately, no, that is a bit of a pain for everyone. For me, at least. If you do ever find me at a local casino, though, I'm happy to sign them. James knows he's being a little mischievous. Are you being mischievous? Hey, can you show everybody your muscles? Show them your muscles. Flex them. Flex them. No, you're not going to flex them? Ah! Louis Philippe says, do you want to watch Star Wars today?
Yeah.
Yeah, you love Star Wars?
Yeah, I want to watch Star Wars today.
What's your favorite episode? There's only one right answer. It's 5.
4.
4? 4 is pretty good. You're right, 4 is pretty good too. That's a good guess. That's a good answer. James, what poker players do you look up to?
12.
Joe?
12.
Who?
12.
12? There's no episode 12. Who are the poker players I look up to? I have an article on this. The 10 most influential poker players to me. Check that out. We have a poker hand because apparently we think we're reviewing poker hands today. Let's see. You out of here? No? Yeah? Tournament, 40 places from the money, so nowhere near the money. You open 2 big blinds.
Help me.
All right, go on. See you later. You raise to 2 big blinds with ace 5 of hearts under the gun. Under the gun plus 2 call. Button called. 6, 2, 2. You checked. I would just bet here and be fine getting money in. Button bet. You called. I would probably just check jam immediately. You don't really want to be check calling out of position with bad ace high. Yeah, and you'd rather just push your fold equity. Turns to 3. You let all in. I would literally never lead all in. When you have nothing in this scenario, I mean, look, you basically never want to be leading because when you lead, you're saying you have the range and nut advantage. So don't do that. You should bet the flop. Just bet flop if they raise, get all your money in. Do you ever ask your wife to give you a shoulder massage while playing? No, absolutely not. Yeah, Joe Stapleton, that's right. I think it's Joe Stapleton is my son's favorite poker player. Can playing too many tables online make you a losing player? Obviously, yes. As you distract yourself in various ways, your win rate will go down. Anytime you do anything else while you're playing poker, your win rate is going to go down. If you listen to me making a poker training video or watching a poker training video while you're playing, your win rate will probably go down. You want to make sure that you are focusing while you play poker, and as you play more tables, your win rate will go lower. Can you do private weekly tournaments? So the problem with these weekly tournaments is we have yet to find a platform that functions properly. I don't especially want to use PokerStars So if I cannot use PokerStars or don't want to use PokerStars, what are the options? The options are the various apps. The problem is every single app I've looked into so far is they cap you at the number of players you can have in a program, in a game. So if they're capping you the number of players, that's not particularly good. I don't want to be running tournaments where they cap it at 300 people. We used to have a home game on PokerStars where we get 1,000 people. I don't want to be capping. I don't want to say, no, you can't play. Sorry. So anyway, we haven't figured out a good platform for that yet. Is that just a fancy dressed up closet you're in? Yes. Good lighting. This is not good lighting. There's literally one light above my head. You ever shown mercy against a weaker player in a live game? For example, choosing not to value bet. I'm sure there's some spot where I've opted to not make the most profitable play. I don't know. Can you give an example of a leak and how to find it? Yeah, say you're in a scenario on the river and you bet with a polarized range and someone calls with like, I don't know, ace high, but you're actually not all that polarized. That's a spot where you don't really want to do that. Next, that's a bad play in a lot of scenarios. Next, what about on the river they have top pair marginal kicker. You're polarized. They check, you bet, they raise for value. Big mistake, right? Because your range is polarized, you're always going to call the better hands, you're always going to fold the worst hands. Yeah, we're not playing on Poker Bros. Out of principle, we're not going to play on Poker Bros or PPP because I do not want to trick any of you into thinking that those are where I recommend you play. Which, may be a bit of a problem. It's tough because I know a lot of people are getting just straight up scammed and cheated on Poker Bros, PPP, etc. And I do not think it is the wise decision for me to lead you to those sites, even if I know I'm not doing anything unethical at all and we're playing for play money. I don't want to make that happen to you. It's very important. Very important to me to not lead you somewhere where you're going to get screwed. Is there a good video for finding leaks? Check out the Master the Heads Up Display course by Alex Fitzgerald. Let's see. At ACR, there is no blitz games. I guess this is fast forward games again. Again, get off of these games, please. You have no choice but to go from 10 to 50. Any advice? Yeah, play the regular games. Play the regular games. You don't have to play the blitz just because that exists. Instead of playing 4 blitz tables at a time, play 16 regular tables. PokerStars is a good site. I have no problem with PokerStars. No, of course it's a good site. It's a good license regulated site. There are issues with dealing with American players, and there are also issues on PokerStars with, I think they want all or the vast majority of home games now to be for real money, and I do not want to, obviously I don't want to run a real money tournament. Again, everyone's asking about American sites. Why do you all not watch the content I have made? I have already made content explaining the various unlicensed, unregulated sites, okay? We've already done that. We're not going to do it again. Look at jonathanlowpoker.com/USA. Look at the video on how to cash out. I know a lot of the shills for these various sites don't even know how to cash out properly, probably because they don't actually ever cash out because they lose it all. But we have videos on how to cash out. We have videos on how to put money in, etc., etc., etc. All right. After playing on ACR, an unlicensed, unregulated site, how do you feel about their software and the runouts? Their software is garbage. I think their random card generator is perfectly fine and legitimate. It's letting me win. We're crushing them. I don't think any of the sites are actually rigged. I think a lot of people think the sites must be rigged because they're not winning. You're not winning because almost no one wins at poker because poker's tough to win at and they take a rake. You're not winning because they're somehow cheating you. Especially the bigger sites that are at least somewhat public, right? So anyway, you had a specific question. Oh, type the specific question and maybe I'll answer it. Are tournaments on ACR is okay, but cash games question mark. This is like, what does this even mean? I don't know. I'm not playing the cash games there. Why? Because I already know they take a lot of rake. Don't play games where they take a lot of rake. The free roll sites have more likelihood of bots. I have no idea. Obviously, you would think as a site has fewer resources, they'd be more inclined to have bots. But if you're playing against people for play money, who cares? No, luck. I don't want people playing for real money in a private game, ideally. Because if it's for real money on an unlicensed, unregulated platform that also offers real money games, I'm not really looking to run stuff there. In my ideal world, somewhere like Party Poker, 888, etc., would make it easy for me to run a private game, but they seem to not want to. You arrive on the river with a broken straight draw. Flush comes on the river. How often will you bluff? Depends on my scenario. Versus in position versus out of position. I'm basically never leading. Leading the river is not a particularly great play unless the board heavily favors you. When you're out of position, check calling. Usually you don't have very many straights and flush draws because from out of position you want to be raising your draws. You're going to find that your draws get raised out of position very, very frequently on the flop and or turn. In position, though, you often call your draws, so on the river I'm definitely bluffing if I'm in position. How do you know if a site offers rakeback? Do a little bit of diligence. If you're playing on ACR, for example, send them an email. They'll give you 27% rakeback. All you got to do is send an email. You don't need a shady rakeback site to be the middleman and take some of your rakeback. Literally send support an email on that site and say that. PokerStars does not offer rakeback. PokerStars offers coins, which are their form of rakeback. You get more coins as you play higher stakes. Same thing on Party Poker. They give you rakeback. You get more rakeback as you play higher stakes. They don't have some convoluted program. GGG has a convoluted program too called the Fish Buffet. Because if you pay a lot of rake, you're a fish. And that's their form of rakeback. Most sites have some form of rakeback. James Romero says that Poker Bros was a good market to go to. Yeah, I mean, the issue, they have games. They have volume, right? As long as you are confident the games are on the up and up, then it's perfectly fine, right? I mean, James is looking at this purely from a point of view of what has good volume. Are the games soft? Games are definitively soft, and there is decent volume there. Okay? Someone said something ridiculous. Well, it's gone. Lost to the ether. When you hit top face card set and are the pre-flop razor, do you ever check? Assuming you have a checking range, yes. Depends on the scenario. You all need to study at pokercoaching.com a lot if you're asking questions like this. We have gone through many, many examples. We've shown you many, many GTO solutions. We've shown you how to play exploitatively. All of that is available at pokercoaching.com. You can get a discount right now, pokercoaching.com/cash challenge. You loved Michael Acevedo's ICM webinar last night. Great. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. You're trying to cash out onto your ledger. ACR wants your ID, credit card, etc., etc. Yes, they need your information. That is going to be standard for any gambling site. You're not playing on some anonymous Bitcoin site. They at least do their best to try to know their customers to some extent and or make it difficult for you to cash out. But yes, you have to give them your ID and all that. That's standard. A lot of people think, oh, it's my money. You can't take my money. I hate to break it to you. When you put money into a poker site, that's not your money anymore. And they don't want to give it to you. Especially if they're unlicensed, unregulated, and illegal. They want to keep your money. So if you can't come up with an ID, for whatever reason, if you can't come up with a bill, sorry. Good luck. People need to get on the Poker Coaching Forum and ask questions. Indeed, they do. You know, a problem a lot of people have here on a little coffee, I'll just tell you this, is that sorry, I'm reading something in the chat. The problem a lot of people have in this chat is that they ask very broad questions. Very broad questions. Like, for example, when you hit top set, do you ever check? Sometimes, right? What use is that answer, though? When do you check? You check when you want to have a checking range. When do you want to have a checking range? When the board does not heavily favor your range from the range advantage point of view and nut advantage point of view. Then you want to check top set. How do we know this? We've looked at a few GTO simulations. All you have to do is look at like 5 or 10 of them in these scenarios when you are out of position and in position, and you will see that that is the case. Everyone wants to be spoon-fed and not do the work. Indeed. It's a little bit unfortunate. I hate to break it to you. If you're going to get good at poker, you're going to have to do a little bit of work. I've already done a whole lot of work consolidating all the good information for all of you. Okay? I've already done it for you. You just have to do a little bit more work. You know I'm sitting here showing no computer screen. Also, I didn't prepare and bring up 5 simulations to show you today because I didn't know that you wanted to drive the topic. And you need to make sure you're looking at specific scenarios as opposed to very broad generalizations. Some people think you can just write a 5-page article and know how to play every single spot. Close enough. Hate to break it to you, you can't. Poker's kind of tough. I'm currently in the process of rewriting my first tournament book, Secrets of Professional Tournament Poker, going back and really confirming why I was doing what I was doing back then. Were there things that were some right? Were there some things that were wrong? And fortunately, it's all pretty close to accurate back then. I just didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. And where was I going with this? I'm really basically going through and really clarifying a lot of things. But to be fair, I've already done a lot of this at pokercoaching.com, so check out pokercoaching.com. How should you raise on the button if it folds to you? Bad question, Chris. Why? You forgot stack sizes. You forgot the opponent's strategies and the blinds. You should be raising more often as you're deeper stacked and less often as you're shallower stacked, for example. How do we know this? We've looked at the charts on pokercoaching.com. We have charts for 75 big blinds, 40 big blinds, 25 big blinds, 15 big blinds. We have all of these charts available for you. This shows me you did literally no work. That said, I'm happy to point you to the resources. Pokercoaching.com, so go to the tools section, and the charts are all there. They're there for you. Spend a little bit of time looking around, right? How much studying before I started playing poker did I do? I read about 4 books on limit hold'em back in the day before I ever played for any significant money, which was a $50 initial deposit. I would buy in for $10. What was it? 5 cent, 10 cent limit or something like that. 25 cent, 50 cent limit? Small stakes limit. I forget, it was a long time ago. But I read 3 or 4 books back in the day before I started playing. You say limit hold'em, ugh. Yeah, limit hold'em is an antiquated, dead game, I agree. I'm quite good at limit hold'em, believe it or not. And I studied a decent amount before I ever even really put money on to play, and that's because I realized if you're bad, you're just going to lose your money. I didn't really want to lose my money. Back then, I was a kid working for $10 an hour, and the idea of losing $50 or $100 or whatnot, it was terrible. So we spent a little bit of money. We spent a little bit of time. We studied, and I never had a downswing. Never had a real downswing. We went from $50 to about $350K kind of seamlessly. We had a few downswings in there, but nothing insane, right? And that's because we were always playing in games where we had an edge. It's cute when he gets angry. Yes, indeed. When he gets cranky. Everyone asking me about various policies for unlicensed, unregulated, illegal poker sites. I don't know. I'm not a shill for these unlicensed, unregulated, illegal sites like many people you're going to watch on YouTube and Twitter and Twitch. Sorry. I represent you all. It's important to realize who's paying the person who's making all the content. Who do you think pays me? Take a second, think about that. Why am I incentivized to sit here and do these shows for you Monday, Wednesday, Friday, give you free webinars like yesterday, pay some of the best players in the world literally thousands of dollars to give content to all of you? Why am I incentivized to do this? Well, I like helping the community, number one, but also you all pay me. You, maybe not exactly you, if you're not aware of this, but you pay me. It is in my best interest by a mile to help you. I'm not trying to help a random poker site, right? Especially a shady illegal one. I'm not representing them, and I don't know their practices. I know that they're operating illegally in America. That's hopefully tip number one. So be safe. But I represent you, and I give all of my efforts to helping you make more money and protect the money that you do have. Does the cash game challenge include? Go back and watch the webinar I did yesterday. We explain every single thing that's in that cash game webinar. I could not beat 30-60 limit. That's correct. That was the highest stakes game. They only had 4 tables back in the day. Button, 30 big blinds, 2.5x, ace 7 of spades, fine. Big blind flats. Ace, 4, 3, all clubs. Check, you bet 5K. Calls, I'd probably bet a little bit bigger, but fine. Turns a blank, check, check. Can you bet there? I think either plays fine. River's 5 of clubs, so now there's 4 clubs. He leads half pot, I would typically just fold. Wow, I have patience, indeed. What are your thoughts on exploitative poker theories? You make money by taking advantage of the mistakes your opponents make, right? Have you changed your mind about playing any of the World Series events? I mean, I already told you all. I'm not going to be playing the New Jersey and Nevada ones just because the buy-ins are way too small. It takes a lot more than a $500 or $1,000 buy-in to get me to get up, leave my work for the day, to go sit in a Whole Foods parking lot to try to make $300 on the day or $500 on the day. It's just not worth it for me. Little. I'm not a lawyer. My wife's a lawyer, but I know a few very, very world-class gambling lawyers. And it's important to make sure you have good connections and know people who know what they're talking about. Is my new book designed for tournament players? Are you referring to excelling at tough no-limit hold'em games? It is mostly using tournament content, but a lot of it is discussing deep stacks that will very much apply to cash game players. Martin says you love my work. Thank you. How much for a coaching session? Go to pokercoaching.com, go to the tools section. You'll see options to get information from me and all the other poker coaching coaches. Should you consider pot odds, minimum defense frequency when calling a river bet if your opponent's playing good, fundamentally sound poker? Ryan DePaulo grew up in Manhattan. He lives 10 blocks away from me, and he studied drama. Wouldn't doubt it. I didn't know he studied drama either. I went to lunch with Ryan DePaulo right before coronavirus hit, and I like him. He's an interesting guy. Shills for a shady poker site, which, I understand people got to make their money, but it is what it is. How do you use pre-flop charts in real time? You pull them up and you look at them. What do you mean? If you really want to be halfway intelligent, you print them out and you put them on the wall right behind your computer, or have them on your phone. For example, whenever I play any game that I'm very unfamiliar with, or at least somewhat unfamiliar with, I'll just print out the charts, have them up on my phone. Played a heads-up tournament kind of recently, and what do? We have the charts on my phone for what you need to be doing in various scenarios based on stack depth. And then you look at them between hands. You know what's going to happen, right? The guy's going to raise the button. It's going to be your turn. What do? There you go. What's the discount code? You just go to pokercoaching.com/cash challenge. You'll get half off your first month of Poker Coaching Premium. Before you had computer programs to help you analyze hands, like the Poker Coaching Range Analyzer, how would you and your poker hands do this? You speculate, which is why back in the day when I wrote my book 10 or 11 years ago, I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. I knew what I was doing. Turns out we were actually pretty close to GTO within reason. Not like perfect or anything, but definitely relatively close, closer than almost everybody else. And how do you learn that? By playing millions and millions of hands, talking about them, discussing them, and going from there. That said, back then there were still some basic computer programs. Do we write out hand ranges? No. Took you 25 minutes to get from your friend's house in New Jersey to the World Trade Center stop, and less to get to the Village train stop. I live on the Upper East Side. To get to New Jersey, I would have to somehow get to Penn Station. Takes like 30 minutes to get to Penn Station. Then what? Then I have to take a train out. I guess I could sit in the literal train station and play. You think that's what Jonathan wants to do this time? Sit in a literal train station and play online poker for 16 hours? That sounds miserable. And then I got to get back home. It's the most absurd thing. I don't know why people are even asking me these questions. I do not put a whole lot of prestige in accolades anymore. I used to. I used to desperately want to be tied with Gus Hansen for 3-time WPT title holder. We had a few options to do that, a few chances to do that, and we always failed. But that's okay. We only have 2 championships. And I would travel to literally every World Poker Tour tournament. Why? For prestige. And eventually I realized, once I stopped traveling so frequently to the tournaments, that, who cares? No one really cares. Do I need to stroke my ego so much that I'm going to uproot my life and travel around trying to play random poker tournaments? It's no. It doesn't make sense. And I remember the first few that I skipped, I skipped a few of them. And it felt so dirty. The fear of missing out, the FOMO was massive. And I realized, who cares? Right? It just doesn't matter. So, Show up, play when you want, do what you want, enjoy yourself. I don't need a World Series of Poker bracelet to make me feel complete. I actually don't care in the least bit. Sure, I'm going to go show up and play the tournaments, but it's just like not a big deal. We did some math here on a little coffee the other day. We thought that the equity would be worth like $2,000 to me, Jonathan Little, who can actually market the fact that I am a bracelet winner now, right? And is it worth it for an extra $2,000 for me to spend 2 weeks in New Jersey playing small stakes or medium stakes online poker tournaments? The answer is just no, right? It's not worth it. Now, I may figure out a way to play the non-American ones, because then there's a lot of big buy-in tournaments. I'm a big fan of getting in lots and lots of volume, and that's that. You already accomplished it. That's why you stopped caring. Quite possibly. It's tough for me to actually analyze that. That said, I know plenty of players who are like good cash game players who, sure, they'd like to have titles and like to be on TV, but they don't really care all that much. So they just sit there and they win $300,000 a year playing their 5 to no limit, and they don't worry about it. Proving your worth to others doesn't make you happier. Maybe it does a little bit, but it's fleeting. Future Hall of Famer, we'll see. I think there are a few qualifications for Hall of Fame that I may not actually meet. For example, play the biggest games in the world consistently. I mean, now I'm playing only $25,000 tournaments. Biggest games in the world are $100,000 tournaments, $1 million buy-in tournaments. That's going to exclude almost everyone, right? If that is the actual qualification. I don't know if they're going to call $10,000 and $25,000 tournaments high stakes. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I guess we'll see. Also, you have to be legitimately in the media. I don't know if I'm actually in the media. There are two categories, like poker industry people. I don't know if I'm a poker industry person. And I also don't know if I classify as playing the highest stakes for an extended period of time. Right? Maybe we'll never get in. I'd like to get in. But again, if I don't, I'm not going to be angry and bitter. Right? Which sites don't allow Hold'em Manager? Go to Hold'em Manager and see. Hold'emmanager.com. They have it right at the bottom of the page. Stop trying to be straight up spoon-fed. Do a little bit of diligence. Micro-stakes question. Let's assume we're playing multi-way pot from the big blind or button with a hand like King Jack after everybody checked the flop. We improved the top pair. We are sure the fish improved a premium hand because he led the size of the pot. Do we re-raise, call, or fold? If you know your opponent has the nuts, fold. Right? What was my screen name for party poker back in the day? They let you change it every 6 months, I think, or every 3 months. So I changed it every 3 months. Last one was ZJ Card Giga Keel Steel, which was an amalgam of a lot of good poker players' names. I was apparently egotistical because I put J at the front of it. Or J Card at the front of it. Because I was J Card sharp for a while. If you carried a backpack, what would you put in it? We've discussed this before. All sorts of stuff. All right. You'll win next year's World Series of Poker. I sure hope so. It's funny how whenever you go to play the World Series of Poker main event, you actually kind of get a little bit hopeful. You're like, oh my god, I could win this. Especially if you double up early in the day. I remember one year I like tripled up at the end of day one. I was like, oh my god, I'm in the top 10 chips. I'm going to win this tournament. And then you realize you have 3 stacks out of the 10,000 you have to get a hold of. You're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to win this tournament. Don't get too excited. Super Adaptoid has it right. If your opponent has the nuts, you should fold. You can take these questions. Yeah, Super Adaptoid, I'm just going to start funneling to you. You can type them in, okay? Have you ever cashed a World Series of Poker tournament? I don't know how many World Series of Poker tournaments I've cashed. A bunch of them. I've cashed the main event. I've made, 4 final tables. 1 in Limit Hold'em, going back to antiquated Limit Hold'em. Oh, it was so much fun. I got 3-handed with Ben Yu, very, very good player, and a guy named Card Sharp Cook, who's also, these two guys, they were roommates, and they were both like the limit kings on old antiquated internet forum. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sitting here playing 3-handed with 2 guys who are roommates who probably chopped the tournament, and they may clue the hell out of me. This is going to be terrible. But then I was very lucky because I got aces and then I lost, and I got aces again and I lost and I was out. So I didn't have to even worry about it. That was a lot of fun. When finding soft beatable tables for cash games, which is the topic of the day, if you're all tuning in late, do you look for specific players or do you look at the hands per hour? I don't think hands per hour is all that relevant. Definitely look for specific players if you know who's bad. That's very, very important. Obviously, take notes on your opponents if you're playing online. Pot size is also very relevant as well. You want to look for high VPIP/preflop raise, whatever stats they give you. And you also want to find the very bad players and see big pot sizes. Would you play any limit hold'em tournaments now? Yeah, limit hold'em regular, for sure. I play the $1,500 one and the 6 max one. Usually it's like $2,500 one. I didn't play the $10,000 limit hold'em. It's usually very small field, and everybody there, I must presume, is pretty good. I mean, like, I know people from back in the day who all play it. I know they were all like the best poker players. So, I'm not sure. Came in 19th in yesterday's bracelet event. Congrats. You literally almost had a bracelet. You commend me for my continued effort to answer all these same annoying questions over and over again. You guess that's my bread and butter. It's not my bread and butter. You have to understand, most people come here and find me, and they're not very, very regular. So the first time I answer their question, it's the first time they've ever had anyone answer that question for them. It's important to understand, basically, who you're talking to. When someone asks a question I've already answered a million times, sometimes cranky old man Jonathan Little comes out, and sometimes nice, happy Jonathan Little comes out. You don't really know which one you're going to get. And usually it's the nice one, and the nice one will hopefully attract new members to poker coaching. The cranky one usually still directs them to poker coaching for the answer if I already answered a million times. Would you use a VPN on Stars? No, Stars does not allow you to use VPNs. If you try to use a VPN on PokerStars, they will tell you that you're on a VPN and that you can't. Also, you should not poop where you eat. Everybody knows, don't poop where you eat. Hi.
Honestly, I show.
How many times has he been on my show today, Mommy? Do you know?
He told me he hadn't got on yet.
James, don't poop where you eat, buddy.
Did he fib?
This is his third time on the show today. Can you say bye-bye? We have to go soon. Show's over in like 5 minutes.
Look at me.
Look at you.
Look at you! Can you stand up? Stand up, you're too heavy. You must weigh what? 80 pounds now? Alright. We have to pack it up. I hope you enjoy yourselves. Hope you have a great day. Remember, you make money when your opponent makes errors. So, find games that you can beat and play them consistently. Reinhard, if I try to log in and use it, I would show you right now. It'll tell you you cannot. Maybe that's because we play high stakes. I'm not sure. Anyway, please don't poop where you eat. Please don't poop where you eat. Please don't poop where you eat. For example, when I used to count the blackjack, I would never play at MGM or Harris. You want to know why? Because that's where I eat. It would be detrimental for Jonathan Little to get banned from Harris or MGM. So, understand, don't poop where you eat. Don't break the rules on places where you would like to consistently play. And PokerStars is going to be a player for the long term. They have live poker tournaments that are substantial. It would be really, really dumb to do anything that could result in you getting banned. Also, look up the Gordon Bio story, and you'll see a really good reason not to do that, because if you poop where you eat, you may not get paid when you win all the money. So please be smart. Don't be an idiot. I learned a long time ago, if you do the right thing, you do good work, everything tends to go well in the long term. If you try to be shady, you cheat people, etc., it could go poorly. Don't break the rules for no good reason. And there are plenty of other sites that are fine enough to play on to the point that you do not need to break the rules. Hope you have a good day. Enjoy yourselves. Make the most of it. Again, if you want to get access to the 14-day cash game challenge that starts in just a few days, and a discount to Poker Coaching Premium, head over to pokercoaching.com/cash challenge. If you play tournaments, we have a tournament challenge there ready for you to get into right now, where every day you will get good content sent right to you that will help you learn how to study consistently and crush the games consistently. Thanks again for being here. Click like, click subscribe, and we'll be streaming 1 hour for everyone, and then the rest for Poker Coaching members. That'll be on Sunday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.